Hi, I'm Dajana Yoakley. I'm a peaceful parenting coach and mom of three, and I'm delighted to give you the latest science backed research on child development, parenting, and to support you in showing up as the parent that you want to be. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Marta Khader is one of my fellow peaceful parenting coaches and somebody I've known for a while. And I'd love to have her talk to you today about peaceful parenting in the framework of Montessori teaching. Welcome, Marta. So glad to have you here today.
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I know you have a background in your kids attending Montessori. Would you kick us off with a little bit about what is Montessori as a framework and the school options for educating children in that environment? Would you tell us a little bit about what it is for people that aren't familiar?
Yes, absolutely. Montessori education was created by Dr. Maria Montessori, and she was a physician who developed in Italy a way of educating what started out to be young preschool children, many
Hmm.
of whom were actually just home and were not in an educational system at the time. So she developed this system and it became wildly popular. And then it was transferred to other countries, including here to the United States. So now you'll see a lot of Montessori schools around.
Hmm.
And I think that number one, sometimes there are a lot of misunderstandings about Montessori education, but one of the most important things is um, that Montessori schools allow for multiple ways of nurturing the child. And you'll see that in the environment. You'll see that through the prepared adult, who is the guide or what we know as the teacher. And
Hmm.
then you'll also see that within the family. So there's kind of this three-pronged approach to Montessori education. And
Hmm.
parents who are interested in providing that in the home, you'll often see certain components of that in the house. And I think that
Hmm.
that's becoming more and more of a popular approach to creating a home environment for your child.
Yeah, and it's really supportive of kind of developing self determination for the child and independent kind of independent play and a sense of confidence for the child. And I'd love for you to talk to us about how this Montessori approach aligns with peaceful parenting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I think parents who are looking to create Montessori inspired homes, I think often look at one component of the environment, which is maybe having lower shelves where everything has its place. Oftentimes, it incorporates wooden works or toys. There are certain, even now, you can buy actual Montessori materials for your house. But
Mhm.
I think that the one way that it really aligns with peaceful parenting beyond creating this nurturing environment is the prepared adult that Maria Montessori calls. And in order to be a prepared adult, I think it really aligns well with being what we know to be a peaceful parent.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the three parts of that would be, of course, the self-regulation, the connecting with our child, and then, of course, coaching rather than controlling. Um, and
Yeah,
so
we could dive a little bit deeper into kind of the specifics of peaceful parenting and how one would, yeah, how that kind of goes in hand, kind of maybe on a daily basis, living kind of in a Montessori home setup.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I know parents are often really interested in involving their child in the home and in the home life and what that looks like, from creating a space for them to have their own things either in the kitchen so they can prepare their own snacks, helping you in the kitchen, either having a stool that is high enough for them to work safely with you at the counter. Um, and then as a peaceful parent, how we interact with our child through these daily interactions aligns beautifully with peaceful parenting. And, when we're in a home with a child, especially a young child, if you're staying home with a preschool or toddler aged child and you're trying to create this Montessori environment, one of the most important things we can do, of course, is regulate ourselves. And
Mhm.
then that way we're showing up as the parent that we want to be in our Montessori created environment.
Mhm.
And then, of course, to take care of ourselves. So again, that we're showing up as the parents that we want to be by through self-care. Um, and then I know one of the things that you often talk about is through self-compassion, of course.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I can see one of the challenges with kind of setting up a Montessori home. Well, maybe not necessarily, but something that I think some parents might run into is frustration over,
Mm,
the child wants to do it themselves, and maybe the parent doesn't feel like they have the time in the moment, or it's going to make a bigger mess. It's going to take longer. It takes longer when the child does it themselves versus if the parent does it for them completely or helps. So, any strategies or tips parents can kind of use to kind of help the self-regulation piece of peaceful parenting when trying to create this atmosphere of really child-led um,
oh,
environments, right?
yes, absolutely. That is a major part of Montessori is allowing the child to do for him or herself that which she can. So that's everything from brushing their teeth, combing their hair, putting on their shoes, to maybe even using a knife to prepare a
Pouring the
snack.
milk or the water
Mhm.
and it's
Yes,
spilling everywhere. I could just see
yes.
that being like a big trigger for some
It,
parents, wasted milk or
yes,
mess to clean up. Yeah, that can
absolutely.
be definitely a big trigger, I think. Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It can be. And so, as we're trying to allow our child the freedom to develop these skills, which of course
Right.
we can do better, right? We could pour the milk much better. We can
Right.
quickly get their shoes on, especially if we're running late. And to have the
Right.
kind of patience, as you said, to mop up spilled milk without getting upset, or to allow the child the time and the space and the patience to put on their own shoes. That requires a lot of uh, back work for us, right? Number one, it's kind of creating a new framework or mindset for ourselves and really trusting and allowing that for messes and spills and understanding that part of the process will be a mess. And so if we are truly going to allow our child to do some of these things, we have to understand that they're not going to be able to do them well the first time. One of my children's Montessori teachers told me that children pour to empty. So she said, expect that whatever
Mhm.
container you give your child to pour from, that will be completely poured out,
Yeah, yeah.
especially in the first plane of development. They pour to empty. So, with that in mind, I bought myself this little pitcher and I only fill it with the amount of milk that I want my child to pour into their cereal. So I'm still allowing them. It's an extra step on my part, right? I can't just hand her the carton, but I fill up this little jug, this little milk container up to the amount that I feel is appropriate. And then she's able to pour it onto her cereal. So you can create frameworks like that. And then,
I like
as
that.
I said, but one of the biggest frameworks that you can do is to reframe for yourself what this is going to look like. And that, yes, there are going to be messes if you're allowing for this. If you're allowing
Mhm.
your child to water plants, they may get overwatered unless you only put in the watering can enough for one plant. If you put enough water in the watering can for all the plants in the house, then yes, you can expect that that will have been poured onto one plant. But
What would be some, yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say,
no, I was
yeah, I
just
was
going to
gonna,
say, but knowing that ahead of time
yeah,
and
yeah.
preparing yourself with rags at the ready is one way. And again, just telling yourself this is first 10 times this is gonna it's gonna get messy. And I have to
Yeah.
be okay with that if this is the approach that I'm wanting to take.
Yeah, it sounds like there's like kind of two parts to it, like you're explaining. One part is your own reframe, like your own mental reframe or a mantra that you could use in the moment to reframe like how you're viewing the perspective of the situation to something that's more helpful. And then the other part is how are you setting up the environment or controlling the environment to set the child up for success? Like you said, if you don't know better, you just give them a full gallon of milk, they're going to pour to empty, and there's a whole gallon going into one tiny cup. Whereas if you're pouring it in a smaller size cup and then they can pour from that, you're setting them up for success and they're still actually learning the skill. Yeah, I love that. I wonder if you could break
Yeah.
down maybe with the mantras, break down a couple of like go-to mantras people can use that have worked for you, maybe to reframe.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things I constantly tell myself is the most important thing here is my connection to my child. So I know you have been my inspiration for being okay with a messy house. And I, on the other hand, I get a little nervous when there are messes. So one of the things I constantly tell myself is the most important thing here is my connection to my child, not this mess.
Hmm.
A mess can be cleaned up, even a really big bad mess, right?
Hmm.
Can be cleaned up most of the time. But your
Hmm.
connection to your child is the most important factor in this equation here. So maintaining my self-control, maintaining a sense of well-being for myself so that I don't overreact to a mess is really important. Um,
Hmm.
Another thing I constantly tell myself is she's still learning.
Right.
And I actually try to think of other situations that I'm also learning in
Hmm.
where I make mistakes. And how would I want to be spoken to when I make a mistake in this learning environment?
Hmm.
So keeping those things in mind. And you mentioned before, a major part of Montessori schools is the prepared environment, meaning that things
Hmm.
are set up with the idea that children are able to do much for themselves, but it does need to be prepared for them to be able to do that. So things need to be
Hmm.
child-sized. Another great example, which we've been talking about now, is there should only be enough liquid in the container from which they are pouring that they
Yeah.
don't overdo it. So actually preparing your environment with these types of things is a great way to save yourself a lot of headache and mess
Hmm.
because then they
Hmm.
truly are able to do it for themselves without it becoming too big of a project that then you're
I
cleaning up.
love that. Yeah, another thing that kind of comes to mind, I think that happens in a lot of houses is that kids don't like to clean up, or they don't like to help clean
Mm,
up, or they don't like to clean up independently on their own. And I think one of the reasons they don't is because they're overwhelmed. And so I
yeah.
think to prepare the environment, one thought would be to put out only an amount of toys in an environment that the child could reasonably, given their nervous system, and it's going to be different for different children depending on what how their nervous system operates, but creating an environment with the available toys and books and resources in their play environment that they could reasonably and successfully put away on their own, and then showing them or letting them initiate cleanup, right, versus
Yeah.
putting
And
all the stuff out and then they're supposed to clean up and it's impossible.
absolutely. Well, I think toy rotations are a beautiful idea. It's a little extra work on your part. It's a lot of extra work on your part, but that it
Yeah.
does help. Also, we all have heard the old adage, everything in its place. So making sure that your child knows that everything does have a place. It makes it easier to know where to put things. And
Hmm.
then another key component to getting your child to clean up after him or herself is the connection piece. That they've
Yes, I'd love to talk about that next. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, your child's not just gonna clean up on their own when you tell them even the first 20 times. You're going to have to go through that with them. And they're going to have
Hmm.
to learn this skill through that connection with you, through having done it with you, through having had
Hmm.
a warm interaction with you in the process. That's how a child learns a new habit, especially one that is uh, not so fun all the time, like cleaning up.
Yeah.
But there are ways to make it fun. And like we said, one of the most important things you can do is to connect with your child through the cleanup. Another thing, of course, we know, you can put on music. Cleanup songs are a great addition to any cleanup
Hmm.
routine.
Hmm.
Having a time to clean up. So at the end of the day, when it's time to clean up, everybody helps. It's a family job. Maybe put on the
Hmm.
timer for 15 minutes and everybody helps in the cleanup, including you. That's another great way to do it. And then, of course, making a game of it,
Hmm.
having different games for cleaning up certain toys. Um, I know somebody that loves to make the bag, the Lego sack, the Lego monster, and then the child to feed the Lego monster. So
That's
all of these
cute.
different ideas, but I think key to that, like I said, is the connection with you that the child has.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I love that. It reminds me of really how connection is the is attachment in action. Like children are always seeking a secure attachment to a primary caregiver, right? And so to meet their need for attachment and closeness with you and proximity,
Right.
we use connection, which is
Right.
playing, which is sitting together. And what happens when we connect is we bond. And
Mhm.
when we bond, we release oxytocin. And
Right.
oxytocin is a
Right.
hormone that feels good. So cleaning up on your own may feel a little overwhelming, may feel
Mhm.
stressful. I mean, it's
Yes.
stressful for us as adults when we have to clean up a big mess. It's stressful for kids too. But the oxytocin they get through the connection dampens the stress response. And now all of a sudden, their nervous system has more resiliency to do a hard thing because
Yes.
and it is a time investment. Like you said, we have to do it with them, but where they're actually borrowing, um, you know, um, positive neurotransmitters that actually help them overcome this difficult task that can feel so difficult sometimes.
Yes. And I think that's absolutely true. Your ability to co-regulate with them during the process allows their nervous system, as you said, the the space to be in a receptive position, to be able to
Mhm,
take in what is potentially a very overwhelming task, especially if things have been out all day and you haven't cleaned up until the end of the day. So if they're
mhm,
able
mhm,
to co-regulate with you and
mhm,
you're able to walk them through what appears to be an overwhelming process, and their nervous system is able to relax and they're able to be receptive to learning how to clean up, then next time the process won't seem so overwhelming. Next time, okay, yes, here we are again, toys all over the floor, but I've done this before. It wasn't so bad.
mhm,
I
mhm,
and
mhm.
they'll have an innate memory of their nervous
Right.
system calming down and then being able to complete this overwhelming and not so fun task because they were able
Mhm,
to do that alongside you through your ability to remain calm and to co-regulate with them, and then they were able to see and to follow through and to complete this task with you.
mhm. I love that. I'd love for you to walk us through kind of the third big idea of peaceful parenting, which is to coach versus control. And if you'd
Mhm.
like to stick with kind of the idea of like cleaning up, maybe, and kind of what happens when, when there's some meltdowns, maybe there's some tears, some emotion coaching, and some limits need to be set. How would that
Yeah.
look compared to, in the Montessori framework?
Yeah, so one of the nice things and that we see a lot in Montessori is that you have the help. You kind of have this extra help of the environment. And so
Mhm,
a lot of coaching is actually done through certain materials that you have prepared to be what we would call self-correcting. Um, so sometimes you don't actually have to say anything. The material itself will help the child to understand that there's a limit here or that this cannot be done in this way. It just won't work. So Montessori actually helps you in coaching if you've done the pre-work to prepare the environment in that way.
mhm.
It
Can you give us a
also
concrete example of that? Like preparing, yeah, like the environment helps you coach?
well, I guess so. Let's go back again to our idea of the milk pitcher. So
Uh-huh.
there's no need to really even say anything to your child, like, "Oh, be careful, not too much. Don't only up to here." When you're able to have prepared it so that it will only produce a certain outcome,
Mhm,
then then you don't have to actually say anything. The the process itself will be self-correcting. Um,
mhm. Okay.
but in another example, a great way where the environment is a great help to us would be to, for example, if you have a certain procedure in the morning to get out the door, certain routines. If you've set the child up to be able to do certain things on their own in a specific order, then again, you don't have to do or say anything. The child is just able to walk through the routine that has
Mhm,
been set up for them to be able to complete. Now, I'm not saying that they won't ever need support, they won't ever need redirection, they won't ever need help if they're just some days just they don't have it in them to do
mhm.
it, then of course the environment is not the only teacher, but it's
Yeah.
a huge help, especially in Montessori.
So is the assumption that if a child is in a regulated nervous system state where they've kind of emptied their emotional burden and they feel like in the moment they feel resilient, then something like a visual checklist or a chart can be the coaching piece and the parent doesn't have to intervene so much. But what
Yeah,
about is then the assumption that if a child is not
it's
in a regulated,
dysregulated.
yeah,
Right.
or is just
Of
overwhelmed,
course.
then the chart won't really be sufficient. Yeah. And can you walk us through how you could
Right. There's
support a
no
child then? Yeah.
no amount of stools that
Yeah.
no no amount of child size anything is going to help, right, with that. So yes, and then of
Yeah.
course that's your job to step in into emotion coach. Um, and that's again where the idea of the what Montessori would call the prepared adult comes in. And so number one, you've got to be able to regulate. First, when you're trying to get out the door in the morning, I'll tell you what, that is the worst time for me to stay self-regulated. That
Mhm,
has
mhm.
taken so much work on my part.
Yeah.
But yeah, your child will at times not be able to regulate in the morning and is going to need your help. And that is the time when you are going to need to step in and emotion coach. And if they are having difficulty with the upcoming separation, helping them with those feelings, being able to actually slow down and listen so that your child can express to you what it is that's causing their
Mhm,
dysregulation. The child could also just, I mean, we all wake up tired sometimes, right? And just grumpy. So, being able to slow down enough to allow for your child's feelings, to allow
mhm,
them to uh, as I said, co-regulate with you so that you are in a state where you can help your child get through the morning routine, which can be at times unpleasant if they're just not in a resilient state, if their nervous system is dysregulated. And if they're
mhm,
able to co-regulate with you, they can often um, come up with enough uh, resources, internal resources
mhm,
to then go through the routine, to then approach the upcoming separation, the transition, all of those things which do require quite a lot of us, and we're asking quite a lot of our children every day to go through this.
mhm,
Um,
mhm. Yeah, sounds amazing. I'd love for you to wrap up for us just kind of the overall benefits that children that are raised in either a Montessori home or even in an educational system with Montessori, based on the research, just overall, what would be some of the benefits that parents can see in their child's development as a result?
Yes, so I think the number one thing when I speak to the parents of my kids' classmates, they both attend Montessori schools. The number one thing we always
Mhm,
hear, of course, is just how self-sufficient and independent these children are, and how easily and excitedly they take on challenges. So,
mhm,
eh, I know particularly my children are really excited about learning how to do something, and if it's something they don't know how to do, there's always the assumption that, well, I can learn how to do this.
right. The growth mindset.
Yes, definitely see a lot of growth
Mhm,
mindset. Another big thing that I've actually seen come out of the research of Montessori kids is their um, empathy and emotional generosity toward others. Um, we didn't really touch upon this, but in a Montessori environment, there's a lot of discussion of the feelings, your own feelings, but then the feelings of others. And
mhm, mhm,
how we create a peaceful environment and one that works for everybody. So children are brought up with the idea that there are other people to be considered, and I know that you often see Montessori children able to help their peers who are struggling either emotionally or struggling with a work. Um, there's also in a Montessori environment, we didn't touch upon this either, but
I know
the
there's so much more.
the mixed ages, and so the older ones from a very early age are taught to help the younger ones with something as simple as putting on their shoes or with a work to comforting them if they're
Mhm.
feeling upset. So you see that a lot from Montessori children, and I've seen some research come out with that as well. Um,
Sounds so good. I mean, I know there's so much more, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about where people can find out more about your work, because I know that if they were interested, they could certainly reach out to you for more information as
yeah,
well.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So my website is peaceplaylove.com. And I uh, do private coaching through that as well. So yeah, if you're looking for any more information, If you're
Yeah.
looking for any more Montessori information, the AMI, which is the International Montessori website, is a fantastic place to start. I love Nicole Cavanaugh as well. She writes the Cavanaugh Report. She's one of my kind of bloggers that I follow for Montessori, and I believe
Mhm.
she also has a podcast called Shelf Help. So if you're interested in getting
Mm.
your home kind of Montessori'd, she's a great
Oh,
place.
that sounds amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll link those in the show notes as well. So amazing.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
with us
you.
today. Really
Yes, thank you for having
appreciate.
me on.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you so much.
Take care.